Lastly, we have Dr. Kenneth McKendrick, Associate Professor and Department Head from Religion, to tell us about that department.
Hi, thanks for being here and learning about the humanities. I'm here to talk a little bit about religion. So one of the most common misconceptions about a department is that we are a theology department. That means that theology is basically the study of God or the exploration of faith. In my view, the theology has very little to do with the academic study of religion. What we're doing here is we're not practicing religion, but we're actually studying it. And so I'm going to start off here with a couple of slides that just sort of ask the question, what is religion? And so one of the first definitions we might have is that there is only one true religion. This is really a definition of religion that set the stage for what we would call comparative theology. In a sense, you had one complete, perfect religion, and then everything else was measured up to it. That stage of comparative theology was eventually gave way to what we call the world religions paradigm. The world religions paradigm is the idea that there are a number of different religions, not just one. We don't have to arrange them in a kind of hierarchy, but these are world traditions that really shape and influence civilizations in a broad-based scale. And traditionally, we see, 7 are defined. And of course, these are very much limited to India and China and the Mediterranean, with scholars not really paying much attention to the rest of the world outside of that. So on the next slide, so I'm going to try to give Amber a hard time here by awkward segues. On the other hand, we also have these political conceptions of religion that are emerging roughly around the same time period. And the one is that religion and politics are separate. This is the idea that, religion is one sphere of life and politics is another sphere of life, and these two don't meet. They're completely separate. And one is inward private faith and belief, and the other one is outward expression, the realm of the magistrates, and so on. John Locke is famous for developing this. On the other hand, we have the idea that religion finds its expression in politics. And in a sense, religion basically, or politics is nothing more than religion in a sense writ large, that any political state is automatically religious state, and that these are almost one and the same thing. And we find this coming right around the same time, emerging at the same time. So these are 4 different definitions of religion, some of which you probably are familiar with or heard or maybe even used at one time or another. Now today, looking at sort of really contemporary conceptions of religion, we have a very open-ended conception is that religion is whatever you believe. So whatever you take seriously, whatever you hold sincerely, soberly, importantly, whatever you believe, that's your religion. And so it may be a wide range of things. Someone else might say, well, religion is whatever you do, whatever you practice. And that would be different than what you believe, which is sort of this inward experiential focus. What you practice is what you do. And so this is very popular with social scientists who might want to say, well, we don't know what goes on inside people. We want to know what they're doing, where they're going to be, what they're going to be doing in those spaces. And so you may define religion that way. Another definition of religion concerns the transcendental. The religion is whatever is superhuman or supernatural. And so these 3 popular conceptions, again, these are all very commonly used in what we call world religions textbooks today, and you'll come across them fairly frequently. Now, the point that I sort of want to make in all of this is not that the definition of religion is elusive or difficult to pin down. I just provided 7 definitions of religion, and that was a pretty easy thing to do. So religion is actually quite easy to define. The question really is, what do you want to do with that definition? What do you want to learn? And so some of those definitions, it's not that they're more or less true. I don't think definitions are true or false, but that they're more or less interesting or more or less useful. And so it really depends on what do you want to do? What do you want to learn about? What kind of questions do you want to ask? So for example, if you want to study ritual, defining religion as an inward belief may not actually be that helpful. One of the things that I like to do is I like to take conceptions or definitions of religion and then apply them outside the traditional box. So I'm very interested in studying fandom. And so I take the tools that we've developed in the study of religion, study of mythology, the study of ritual, the study of narrative, and then I apply them to Star Wars, or I apply them to Harry Potter, or I apply them to the zombie apocalypse, because I find that the tools that we've developed in our field are really, really good at studying non-traditional religions as well. And so what we get here when we're looking at what is religion is not that religion is difficult to define. It's easy to define, but it really depends on what you want to do, what you want to learn, and what kind of questions you want to ask, and then where you go from there. So as many of the programs here, we have an undergraduate and graduate programs. We have a minor, general major, advanced major, honors single, and an honors double. And the thing that I would like to talk a little bit about, just a little bit, would be the joint master's program with the University of Winnipeg. The JMP program, we have 8 people that are involved here. We also have an equal number of people that are involved at the University of Winnipeg. That means we have about 16 people that are involved in the joint master's program, making it one of the largest graduate programs in the study of religion in all of Canada. There's a couple that are larger, but for the most part, we have a vast amount of resources for students to draw upon. So in addition to being able to take an undergraduate degree here, you're able to go on and do graduate work here and enter into one of the richest programs that we have in the country in terms of the resources that are available to you. So the way our program is structured, we basically have courses in 3 different areas, and I've summarized them here as traditions, themes, and theory. A traditions-based approach is one that where a professor will walk students through or engage with students and have a conversation with them about a particular religious tradition. So a classic example would be our second-year classes, Introduction to Islam, Introduction to Judaism, Hinduism, Buddhism, Christianity, and so on. And so a traditions-based approach would look at a single tradition, Christianity, for example, and it would look at various contestations, various contexts, various contradictions within that, and look at how Christianity either is held together or fallen apart or changes over time. Very much like Mike said, mythology, how it's used, how it functions, changes over time. Traditions are the same way. What Christian means today in Winnipeg is different than it meant 1,500 years ago in another part of the world. So traditions-based process will do the sort of survey of a particular tradition in a number of times and places. Thematic courses are sort of like religion in relation to something else. And so what you might have is a particular topic or theme, and that a number of religious traditions intersect with that theme. And so as Heidi mentioned, the course on death. Death is a great course. It's a fun, I don't find it morbid. In some respects, I find it actually kind of a fun class to teach because you're looking at the ways in which people, what they do with bodies. You know, the corpse is, for example, a common theme. At the end of the day, we all have to deal with a dead body. And I know that may be kind of morbid, but it is a very practical difficulty. And so what do? Do you bury the body? Do you preserve the body in glue and then stick it on a shelf? Or do you burn the body? What do you do with it? And so how religious traditions have treated the corpse is a potential theme that we deal with. How people mourn, how they grieve, how they cry. Is it you keep it all to yourself? You express it very loudly? Is it 30 days, 180 days? Is it for 5 years? Is it forever and ever? Or is it you're not supposed to grieve at all? And so one of the things in these thematic courses is that we see that there are these sort of cross-cultural themes that human beings have to deal with pragmatically on an everyday basis: purity, impurity, sexuality, all of these things, but that religious traditions from different times and places have all interacted with those themes in very different ways. And so you get this sort of almost a global smattering, a sprinkling of a bunch of different ideas and how people have dealt with these very pragmatic things. And in terms of method and theory, we're one of the few undergraduate departments that require students to take classes on method and theory in the academic study of religion. And that's a big part of our program, and it's a bit of a selling point. My contribution to that is I don't so much do the history of religion or methodological approaches to religion. I actually focus a lot on the history of the study of religion. So I don't study religion itself, but I study scholars who have reportedly studied religion, and I focus on all of the things that they're doing. So introductory courses, many of these classes are actually W credit. So if you're looking for a writing credit, you can take 1322, 1324, or 1440, among others. These are courses, most of them are thematic in their emphasis, in the sense that they have a particular theme, and at the introductory level, you're just going to get a bunch of snapshots of different people, different cultures, different places and times, all in one sort of basket. So my favorite class is, of course, not of course, but my favorite class is the Evil class, Evil World Religions, where I take a topic like contamination, and I look at the way in which different people and different times and places approach dirt or contamination or pollution. How you become impure, what impurity means, how do you fix the impurity. So we might look at sexuality or funerals, or even the logic of insults, when people call one another names and then they feel as though that name actually becomes part of their person and taints them somehow, and have to go for a purification ritual in order to fix that. So we do those kinds of things at the introductory level. Looking at some of our cool courses, Professor Marks teaches one of those, Ancient Medicine and Magic, a course that she created. We also have a course on atheism. This is the first time it will be taught this year, the supernatural and popular culture, animals and ethics, Buddhism in the West, history and the study of religion, and body history. I'm going to select out the supernatural popular culture. It's a class that I teach on a regular basis. In that course, my students will walk through things like Harry Potter and Marvel superheroes and Jediism. And at one point, they'll also get to play a game called Dungeons and Dragons. So they get a chance to experience what it means to, in a very vivid way, live in an imaginary world. And so we do all of these kinds of things, and we explore all of these different aspects in order to sort of see how people use supernatural representations. And so while on the one hand, people might think, well, when you're studying religion, you're really studying God, aren't you? And I'm going to be like, well, people treat Harry Potter a lot like God. Harry Potter is supernatural, he's got magical powers, he does these incredible things. And people use the concept of God, or people use the concept of demons, or they use the concept of magic in particular ways, but people use Harry Potter, supernatural representation, in a particular kind of way too. And I think it's really interesting to use the tools that we bring to bear in the study of religion to examine things like popular culture and fandom and those kinds of things. Yeah. So some of the core skills learned, this is a repetition of some of the things that have already been said. But what I really want to mention here is that these skills should not be underestimated at all. Ultimately, when an employer is looking for a really good employee, they're going to be looking for that employee to be able to solve problems. And one of the things that we offer in the study of religion, or in classics, or in English and film and theater and media, is the ability to teach people how to problem solve in multiple ways. In other words, you'll be able to adopt multiple perspectives whenever you have a problem in front of you. And so you might be able to say, well, we have a problem. Your employer might say to you, we have a problem and we need it fixed. And you might say, well, from an anthropological point of view, the problem can be fixed this way. But if we adopt the sociological point of view, we can solve it this way. Or if we adopt a point of view from the study of religion or mythology, we can fix it this way. And so somebody might be able to say, well, you've got a problem and I've got 9 different ways of solving it. And it's the ability to adopt multiple theoretical perspectives or multiple viewpoints, to be able to see the world through the eyes of another person, that really launches the humanities into a much larger sort of field of human development and shared livingness together, I think, what Heidi sometimes referred to as the good life. So sample careers. The study of religion is great in the sense that, one, you can become a professional scholar of religion, but two, it lends itself to a number of other fields: education, architecture, law, medicine, public administration, journalism, and so on. All of these fields are areas in which knowing something about world religions or religions from around the world or different cultures, or being able to adopt multiple perspectives, are very useful for. One thing I like to focus on in some of my classes is the relationship between religion and law. If you look at court cases today, legal battles and legal disputes, many of them often revolve around religion. What is religion? How do you define it? What does it mean? Is it traditional? Who's involved? What counts or what doesn't count? For example, the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster may sound a little bit silly, but has gone into the courts in a number of places because many of its adherents would like to be able to have their picture taken with a pasta strainer over their head. Now that may sound silly, but then you also have something like the Church of Satan, or you have Jediism, or you have non-traditional forms of Christianity, all vying for particular legal privileges. And so having a background in the study of religion, what counts as religion, what doesn't, who gets to decide what counts and what doesn't, can be very helpful in that particular field. So thank you very much for listening, and I'll pass it back.